You ever go to a ballet and just want to punch someone in the face? Hi all, it's Mike. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most influential and most controversial pieces of music ever written in the classical music world. Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring. This piece was so new, so out of the ordinary, that it's regarded as one of the most influential pieces ever written for modern music. And its premiere has become something of a legend. It's time for Fight Night, a brief history of the Rite of Spring premiere. First, some background. This ballet's origins begin back in 1909 when Russian producer and entrepreneur Sergei Diaghilev first heard Stravinsky's Fireworks in concert in St. Petersburg. Having heard Stravinsky's unique style, he offered him a job in Paris. Initially, it was just to help orchestrate some music for a new ballet, but he did such a good job of it that Diaghilev presented him with a commission for an original ballet of his own. This would become the Firebird. The success from Firebird led to another ballet, Petrouchka, which was successful enough to produce a third commission for a ballet. This is where we come into The Rite of Spring. This ballet is meant to depict ancient tribal sacrifice rituals. It's about a primitive tribe back in pagan Russia worshipping the earth and appeasing the gods for the oncoming spring. It ends with their sacrifice, a young girl literally dancing herself to death. Lay down the boogie and play the funky music till you die. So to match the story, the music itself was very primal. It's jarring, it's raw, it's earthy, nowhere near what ballets or really any other kind of music before this had ever come close to. In fact, the conductor of the ballet's orchestra, Pierre Boulez, had to be convinced to actually go through with this piece when he first heard it performed on piano. His first reaction was just to up and walk out. Quick little tidbit for your Gee Whiz collection. Like most orchestral pieces, Rite of Spring was originally written in a condensed form just for piano. Now, unfortunately, we don't know where that original version is. It's completely lost. However, in the same year that Stravinsky published the full orchestral version, he also published a version for piano duet. And who were the first people to perform that piano duet version? Well, Stravinsky himself and French composer Claude Debussy. Those two played it for Diaghilev while the piece was being written in order to help him prepare for the upcoming premiere. Now you know! So we have this new idea for a ballet, and it's everything that early 20th century Paris audience are gonna want, right? I mean, they were really into Russian music at the time. They were anxious for, the new and the exotic. They loved Russian composers like Alexander Borodin, like Modest Mussorgsky, and Stravinsky's teacher, Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov. So surely, the Rite of Spring would be exactly what they would have wanted. Well, the house was packed. It was completely sold out, standing room only in the theater. Rumors and reports from the local newspapers have been flying around, generating a lot of buzz. This was one of the most highly anticipated premieres of its time. Think Star Wars Episode 7 in 1913. But once the piece started, didn't take very long for some of the audience members to start behaving very rudely. Just in the opening few bars, in fact, catcalls and jeers and even some laughing going on. This is, you don't laugh if it's not a comedy. It's just rude. It's rude. Now, a lot of big name people were at this premiere. Pablo Picasso was there, Maurice Ravel and Claude Debussy, famous French composers, and the author Gertrude Stein. And our friend Camille Saint-Saëns was at the premiere as well. In fact, when the ballet began with that haunting bassoon solo, Saint-Saëns turned to his neighbor and said, "What instrument is that?" To which his neighbor replied, "Why, that's a bassoon, maestro." Saint-Saëns scoffed and said, "If that's a bassoon, then I'm a baboon." To which Stravinsky said, "You said it, not me. I know you are, but what am I? Your mom's a baboon." Actually, Stravinsky denied that Saint-Saëns was in the audience at all at this premiere, so. And everything just went haywire when the audience saw the dancers. They quickly became divided into two factions, those who thought that this was brilliant and ingenious, and those who thought it was just garbage. People started to argue amongst themselves, and it grew louder and louder. It got so loud that the poor dancers couldn't even hear the orchestra, and it was right in front of them. The ballet ballet's choreographer, Vaslav Nijinsky, had to get up on a chair backstage and start shouting the counts and the steps so that the dancers could stay together. Eventually, the audience became so heated that they started throwing things at the orchestra and at the dancers. I mean, a few fist fights even broke out. In total, 40 people had to be ejected from the theater. And you thought the parents at your local Little League games were bad. Now the big question, why did the riot happen? Was it really a spontaneous thing? Was the music just so new and so evocative that the audience just couldn't contain itself? This can be difficult for us to believe today, especially in terms of classical music. Music has evolved so much over the past few decades that something like Rite of Spring just sounds plain tame to us now. I mean, especially compared to a lot of stuff that you hear written today. But back then, to them, this was about as new as you got. Perhaps it was inevitable because of rising social tensions. Many in the audience were fairly anti-Russian, anti-Diaghilev, anti-Nijinsky, and so they may have come to the premiere not to watch the show, but purposefully to cause a ruckus. And that's not something that's unknown to us today. You look at any political rally and there are sure to be a group of protesters there who are going to cause a bit of a rabble just to make sure that their voices are heard. Or maybe this was just a big publicity stunt. Diaghilev was a pretty knowledgeable guy when it came to the business and producing end of things. And as you all know, audiences love a good scandal. So a fight breaking out at a ballet would be sure to generate a lot of interest and probably a lot of revenue. Since that epic premiere night, the Rite of Spring has gone on to enjoy unprecedented success. It's one of the most universally loved and critically acclaimed pieces ever written in classical music. It's a must-do for orchestras who are of any high quality whatsoever, and it's a standard test for conducting students. So, why did the riot happen at the ballet? Was it spontaneous? Was it rigged? Was it inevitable?
The world may never know.
Thank you all so much for watching. Why do you think the riot started? Do you know of any other pieces that have caused a big upheaval like this? Leave your thoughts and ideas down in the comments section. As usual, down in the description, there's a link to a playlist that you can subscribe to and listen to all the pieces that we talked about today, including that version for piano duet that Stravinsky and Debussy played. Also, there's a little button around here that says subscribe on it. You should definitely click it. Happy listening.